Okay, I thought I'd make a little video putting together the Taube, and for this one I've decided I'm going to use pin hinges. So to stop the pin hinges from gluing themselves together, I'm just using a little bit of handy oil. It's just machine oil, sewing machine oil, and I'm just dabbing it on the put a little bit in there so it doesn't get everywhere, dabbing it on the hinges a bit before I glue them in. Now I'm not going to do a video of me gluing all these hinges in. As you can see, I started doing a couple there. It's no good me teaching you to suck eggs, but all I'm doing is just putting a couple of dabs of CA on the hinge. Then let's sliding it into the hinge slot. I'm just going to wipe off any excess there. Maybe give it a little spray with the accelerator, and yeah, so that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to glue all the hinges in place, and then I'll come back. Okay, I've glued most of the hinges in place, and now I've bent up a small piece of wire which fits in the slot and the hole in the rudder, to hold the two rudder parts together. So I'm going to glue that in. I've already bent that to size, so slide that in there. Again, I use a bit of accelerator. Same with the other side. I did test fit these before I decided to put them together. I did a test, as I always do. I always do a test fit on all the parts before I put glue on. Okay, now with this, the rudder has to go in place first, and then the elevator after. Before I do that, I'm going to glue in the control arm into the slot in the rudder, and I'm going to drill a little hole. There is a hole in the control arm, but I'm just going to clear it out with a 1.5 drill bit. So I've just cleared that out. for the control for the wire, and that'll be glued in there. Okay. And make sure the control horn is in the bottom of the fuselage where the slot is for the servo. Do a test fit first. Make sure that's everything's lining up, and it does. So once again, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on these surfaces just to make sure. I'm not going to glue the hinge surfaces together. And I'm going to put a bit of super glue. C8. And as you can see, I'm using the cheap Hobby King C8. Once again, make sure that the horn goes on the bottom. The glue, the oil does help to stop these hinges sticking. That's quite free, as you can see. So now we'll glue together, before I do anything else, we'll glue together the elevator. It's made in 3 pieces, and the reason I made it in 3 pieces is because when I print above a certain height, especially on this thin, you know, where it's very narrow, above a certain height and it starts to do lines, because it moves. I think as it's printing it moves slightly and you get lots of lines, so it's much nicer to print shorter, lower pieces. Now I want a piece of I'm going to use a little bit of, you could print a piece of this if you don't have any. This is a bit of carbon fibre 3x1, and this actually is going to help. It's going to help us to line up and sit and make it a little bit stronger, of course, through the elevator itself. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide that in there. Do a test fit first. Yes, it fits quite nice. And then I'm going to put a little mark in there. So I know where to glue from. I'll start gluing there. I'm just going to put a bead of glue on there. I'm going to glue that to the back part of the elevator, like that. And then the second half of the elevator will sit there. Again, that helps to line it up because it's just protruding a little bit. So I'm going to glue down there. That in there. So pop that on the deck just to make sure I keep it flat and straight. Okay. cut that off afterwards. And now I'll slide that inside there. There we go. Yeah, it'll go. It'll go okay. So, run. I'm always a little bit not knowing whether to glue on this part or on the inside of the other part, because it squelches out and then it'll make a mess. But we'll try it this way first. Just put a light bead and then I'll run a little bit down there. This is why it's always good to do a test fit. To do a test fit first. Before you actually glue, and to know just how much time you've got to get it together, because as you know with super glue you don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to cut off that little bit of excess there. And that now is quite strong for an elevator. Once again, I'm going to do a test fit onto here. This got a test fit on here. Probably didn't need 4 hinges, but hey. Seems to go together well. It feels quite heavy to start elevator. And I do have somewhere another little horn that fits in that slot there. I don't know where it is, but we'll find out later and pop it in. And what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to pull this right out, I'm going to slide this up to almost the end, so I'll put it in the slots. I'm going to put a bit of oil again on the backs of these hinges, just to make sure I don't glue the hinges. Now a friend of mine suggested that I print the hinges with the flexible filament, which I might actually have a go at. That'll save this having to make sure that the hinges are free with oil. Anyway, I'm going to put a dab of super glue on all these 4 hinges, both sides. Push it home. Again, I've made sure the ribs are actually on the top of the fuselage. Give it a spray with a bit of accelerator, wipe off any excess. So we've not a lot of movement, but you don't need a lot with such a large elevator as this. Okay, so that's the rudder and the elevator in place. Where the control? Oh, here's the other control hole. So I'm going to drill. And now I can glue that in place. Glue that control hole in place. Stiffening up a bit, is that? It might actually be wise to use the flexible, well, it's free, I'm sure a little bit more oil on the, I think it's just where it touched the gap actually between the hinges. It's quite free now. But I think it may be a good idea to have a look at the flexible filament to make the hinges from. Okay, now we can start gluing the fuselage itself together.